Most surfers think they'll never be the one who doesn't make it back to shore. December 23rd, 1994, proved that nobody is safe, not even legends. What happened that day changed big wave surfing forever, and it's just the beginning of what you need to know before you paddle out. Mark Foo was 36 years old and already a household name in the surfing world. The Halewa, Hawaii native, had conquered some of the most dangerous waves on the planet. He was known for his fearless approach, his charisma, and a quote that would become tragically prophetic. "If you want the ultimate thrill," he once said, "you've got to be willing to pay the ultimate price." On that winter morning, Foo boarded a red-eye flight from Hawaii to Northern California. Word had spread through the surf community like wildfire. Mavericks was going off. The break at Half Moon Bay was producing massive waves, and Foo wasn't about to miss it. Sleep-deprived and running on pure adrenaline, he arrived at the recently discovered spot that was quickly becoming legendary in its own right. His first session at Mavericks would be his last anywhere. Foo paddled out into waves estimated at 18 to 20 feet on the Hawaiian scale, which translates to substantially larger faces. Witnesses say he took off on what seemed like a manageable wave. The wipeout looked routine, almost boring by big wave standards. He went over, disappeared under the white water, and that should have been it. Surfers wipe out constantly, but Foo never resurfaced. Professional surfer Mike Parsons wiped out on the very next wave and later described feeling something underwater, possibly making contact with Foo as the ocean tossed them both around like rag dolls. Over 2 hours passed before anyone found him. When they finally located Foo's body inside Pillar Point Lagoon, he was still attached to the broken tail section of his surfboard. The leash that's supposed to keep your board close had become an anchor. The prevailing theory is that it snagged on the rocky bottom, and with a second wave crashing overhead, the rushing currents made it impossible for him to reach his ankle strap and release himself. He drowned trying to get to the surface, just feet away from air. The coroner's report listed saltwater drowning and blunt head trauma. Foo's death made front-page headlines around the world, introducing millions of people to Mavericks for the first time. Over 700 mourners showed up to Waimea Bay for his funeral 6 days later. Exactly 1 year to the day after Foo died, December 23, 1995, another tragedy struck at Waimea Bay itself. Donnie Solomon was everything the surf community valued. The Ventura, California native was a rising talent, but more than that, he genuinely cared about safety. He volunteered with the Red Cross and constantly encouraged other surfers to get first aid training, CPR certification, and lifeguard qualifications. The irony of what happened next is almost unbearable. Solomon paddled out into a building swell at Waimea. He positioned himself to catch a wave, but missed it, which put him in the worst possible location, the impact zone. When you fail to catch a wave at a spot like Waimea, you don't just paddle back out and try again. You're now exactly where the next set is going to detonate. A 25-foot set rolled in. Solomon tried to make it over, tried to punch through to safety on the other side. He didn't make it. The wave's lip caught him, sent him over the falls, and drove him down into the churning chaos below. Aaron Lambert and Cody Graham, two other surfers in the lineup, immediately started searching. They found him and pulled him from the water, starting revival attempts right there in the ocean. Nothing worked. The man who had spent so much time teaching others how to save lives couldn't be saved himself. 2 deaths, same date, 1 year apart. You'd think that would be the end of the curse, but December wasn't finished with the surfing world. These weren't freak accidents at unknown breaks. These were experienced watermen at famous spots, doing what they'd done hundreds of times before. What makes big wave surfing so deadly isn't just the size. It's the combination of factors that can turn a normal wipeout into a coffin. Shallow reefs lurking just below the surface. Currents strong enough to pin you underwater, no matter how hard you fight. Waves that hold you down for so long, your lungs start to burn, then scream, then give up entirely. Hawaii's North Shore has claimed more lives than any other surfing region on Earth, with Pipeline leading the body count at 7 confirmed fatalities since 1989. But the deaths aren't limited to one spot or even one ocean. From the frigid waters of Northern California to the tropical brutality of Tahiti, The ocean doesn't discriminate. And what happened to the next group of surfers proves that experience, skill, and respect for the water sometimes aren't enough. February 14th, 1997, Valentine's Day. Todd Chesser was supposed to be on a film set at Jaws, one of the most photographed big wave breaks in the world. Instead, he made a different choice, one that would cost him everything. Chesser wasn't your typical adrenaline junkie. His mother was an amateur surfing champion who moved him to Hawaii at age 3 after his father died in a car accident. Surfing wasn't just in his blood, it was his blood. By his late 20s, he'd become a Hollywood stunt surfer, while maintaining his reputation as one of the best big wave riders alive. He was 28 years old and about to get married. On that Valentine's Day morning, Chesser looked at the crowds gathering at Waimea Bay and made a decision. He drove past the packed lineup and headed to outside Alligators, a break that even hardcore locals avoid. It sits further out, angrier, lonelier. He surfed for hours, rode wave after wave. Then a 25-foot set appeared on the horizon. Chesser was caught inside. The first wave of the set hit him, drove him under, held him there. The second wave didn't give him time to surface. The third made sure he never would. They found his body later that day in the nearby area. His wedding was supposed to be in 3 months. Pipeline claimed another victim on December 2nd, 2005, but this one shocked everyone because the wave that killed him wasn't even that big. Malik Joyeux was French Polynesian royalty in the surfing world. They called him Petit Prince, the Little Prince. He'd won the 2003 Billabong XXL Tube of the Year for a barrel at Teahupo'o that shouldn't have been possible. He'd been surfing since he was 8 years old, mastering waves that terrified grown men. An 8-foot wave at Pipeline killed him. Not 20 feet, not 30. 8. By Pipeline standards, that's almost manageable. But there's no such thing as a friendly wave at Pipe, and this one caught Joyeux perfectly wrong. The presumption is that it slammed him onto the shallow reef below. The autopsy revealed he'd likely been knocked unconscious instantly when his board came up and hit him in the head. He drowned while unconscious, unable to fight, unable to even know he was dying. December 4th, 2007. Peter Davey ignored every warning. Forecasters told surfers to stay out of the water at Ghost Tree in California. 70-foot waves were being ridden by tow teams, surfers using jet skis to get pulled into mountains of water too fast to paddle into. Davey decided to paddle into one anyway, using nothing but his arms against a wave taller than a 7-story building. They found his body floating in a kelp bed in Stillwater Cove. The rescue team tried to revive him. He was already gone. March 16, 2011, just before sundown at Mavericks. Sion Milosky was charging 40 to 60-foot surf, living his best life. The 35-year-old father of 2 had just made headlines in Trans World Surf magazine with the title, "Sion Rules the Winter." Despite growing fame, he remained humble, hardworking, respected by everyone who knew him. He was held under by 2 consecutive waves. When you're talking about waves that size, being held under by 1 is a nightmare. 2 is a death sentence. Your lungs are already screaming from the first hold down. You're already depleted, already desperate. Then, the second wave hits before you can breathe. Witnesses saw him briefly after the first wave. Then he vanished. They found his body 20 minutes later, face down near the harbor entrance at Half Moon Bay. He was in the prime of his life. 2 years later, November 13, 2013, Kirk Passmore took his final ride at Alligator Rock. The experienced big wave surfer who lived on Oahu's North Shore picked one of the biggest waves of the day. Witnesses saw him wipe out, saw him surface briefly. Then the next wave hit him. He never got his head above water again. Jamie Sterling, a former big wave World Tour champion, was there. He said it looked like Passmore had broken his eardrum, or maybe his neck because his feet popped up and he was facing down. Vertigo, loss of equilibrium. In water that violent, confusion equals death. But here's what's changed. Modern big wave surfing has gotten simultaneously more dangerous and more survivable. Inflatable life vests keep surfers from being held under, long enough to drown. Jet ski safety teams can whip riders out of harm's way within seconds of a wipeout. Water safety protocols have become military-grade operations. Yet, people still die. Marcio Freire drowned at Nazaré, Portugal in January 2023 at age 47. Makala Jones died in Indonesia in July 2023 when his own surfboard fin severed his femoral artery. He was 44, known for shooting incredible footage from inside massive barrels. The ocean doesn't care about your safety equipment, your experience, or your legacy. It doesn't care that you've ridden 1,000 waves before. Pipeline alone has killed 7 people since 1989 and injured countless others. Every single one of them knew the risks. Every single one of them was skilled enough to be there. They went anyway. The statistics sound manageable until you realize they represent actual people. Sons, daughters, fathers, mothers who left for a surf session and never came home. Big wave surfing attracts a specific type of person. Someone who understands the risk and paddles out anyway because the feeling of riding a mountain of water is worth potentially everything. That calculation works until it doesn't. The ocean keeps score in a way nothing else does. You can have a perfect track record for 20 years, and one miscalculation, one moment of bad luck, one equipment failure ends it all. What makes these deaths so haunting is how preventable some of them seem in hindsight, and how utterly inevitable others were. Mark Foo's leash snagging on rocks, Malik Joyeux getting knocked unconscious by his own board, Donnie Solomon being in the impact zone at the exact wrong second. These weren't reckless decisions by inexperienced surfers. These were split-second differences between another successful session and never breathing again. So if you're going to paddle out into serious water, understand what you're actually risking. Not just injury or a bad wipeout, but everything. Because the ocean doesn't give second chances, and it doesn't care how good you think you are.